Eli Lilly's antibody trial has been paused over safety concerns, just one day after Johnson & Johnson put its pause on its vaccine trial over some concerns. Joining us now is Jefferies healthcare and biotech analyst Michael Yee. Michael, do we know anything about the Lilly trial being put on pause? It was surprising only in that these monoclonal antibodies that they are testing are supposed to be very safe. And that's what we've heard from Regeneron and Lilly in the past.
Oh, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think what's important for viewers and for investors is, number one, the companies and the FDA are taking a real close look at everything in these studies. And I think the good news is you should feel that there is hyper magnification of everything, because we want to make sure these are safe. So people should feel good that they're not rushing this along and they're looking at everything. The second thing is, you're right. I think generally antibodies are very safe. We feel comfortable, barring any more further information, that this is going to be okay. Remember, there's a benefit to these drugs, and I think that we're going to probably find out it's all okay and these are going to move forward.
So should we take this as to be expected and nothing to worry about? And if so, why are the shares down 3%?
Well, I think that as J&J mentioned this morning, as others have mentioned, AstraZeneca, when they had the vaccine pause, we'll tell you from the biotech industry, these types of pauses to look at things carefully are actually quite common. This is kind of the only situation where, of course, on a global scale and, of course, major attention to this, that things like this come out, whether it's a doctor or somebody is telling this to the media. Things like this do happen. And so I would just reiterate, this is not so much of a big deal. It is natural for people to get worried, get scared, and so we think it's going to be okay.
And in fact, if you were worried about getting the vaccine because it was being rushed through, I would think that this would actually give some confidence that the checks and balances are in place and they are, dotting every I and crossing every T. Having said that, Michael, the market, Wall Street, the world is very optimistic about the speed at which a vaccine could come to market and even some of these antibody treatments. Do we have to push that back at all because it isn't going to just go straight up as we're seeing with some of these pauses?
Well, I think pushback is in the realm of month or 2 or 3. Those are the types of compressed timelines we're talking about. People are talking about a vaccine by election day. What we're talking about is data could come, right? So we'll know, is what Pfizer is saying, within this month. Moderna will have the data. So whether it's an emergency authorization approval like for Regeneron or Lilly, we're going to generally know that these things are going to be effective. We'll get the emergency authorization. We're talking about months in terms of timelines of when this stuff is coming.
Michael, how encouraged are you overall, though, by these antibody treatments, whether it's Regeneron's or Lilly's or anybody else's? Are they good enough that, in fact, we might not even need the whole population to be vaccinated?
Well, I think if you take a step back, the most remarkable thing that's come out over the last 2 to 3 months, what have we learned? Number one, vaccines look like they are going to work. You're hearing very optimistic commentary out of Fauci and CEOs, and we've had data, of course, in early data in some of these vaccines. And then you come out last week or two and you saw remarkable data out of Lilly and Regeneron. Lilly data showing you 70, 80% reduction in hospitalization. I take a step back and say, what's great about this is we're clearly making a lot of progress on this front. I think when you get into 2021, people will probably feel more comfortable once we get all this data. We are going to need vaccination. If you still get the disease, you obviously have a drug to treat.
It's good to hear. Just a technical question here, Michael. How many, since we don't follow the trials as closely as we are this COVID-19 one, how many of these pauses actually end up leading to holds from the FDA that could take a little bit longer to resolve?
Sure. I'll put it this way. My understanding is that pauses to look at some event is a very common occurrence. I'll tell you that when I look over the last year in terms of actual clinical holds where the FDA come and said, no, do not do anything, you must have an evaluation, that would be like 10 or 20 over the whole industry over the last year. It's not very common for something like that. But looking at pauses, I guess, is what you're asking, that's very common. So I'm not concerned about this. AstraZeneca, by the way, everyone but the United States has resumed enrollment, so remind you about that.
Michael Yee, thanks so much for joining us. Much appreciated.
Thanks.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.